Alright, working on video number 3. We're going to go ahead and skip 4 real quick and move up here to 5. So, looking at making our factorings. So we have m in the front, so it's going to break down into m and m. M and m. So we have a negative here in the middle and positive over here. So like in our previous video, we had the two negatives, negative here, negative here. Now we have positive in the back and negative in the front. So same thing, going to break down 11. So we're going to have a 1 and 11. 11 is also a prime number like 17 was in our previous one. So we have 1 and 11. So what would 1 and 11, how would 1 and 11 make up a negative 12, but then also remain positive for the 11? Well, a negative 1 and an 11, positive 11. So if we did negative 1 plus 11, that would give us 10. That wouldn't work. So we did negative 1 and negative 11. If we did negative 1 and negative 11, that would give us negative 12. So we got to make one negative 1. So one of them negative 1, and one of them negative 11. And then, like I said in the previous video, the reason the 17 had to have a 1 positive, 1 negative was because this was negative. Positive and a negative combined, when multiplying, makes it negative. But if I had two negatives, a negative and a negative, so if I did 1 times, or negative 1 times negative 11, that would give us the positive 11 we needed. And then breaking it back down, m times negative 11 is negative 11m, and then negative 1 times m gives us negative 1m, or just negative m. So negative 11m minus m gives us the negative 12m that we need in the middle. Now back down here to number 4. So breaking this down, you have q and q. Because of the q squared, you got to break that down into 2 q's. Now, it's a little different here. It looks like it's more difficult than it actually is. You're like, well, what can, why is there only a q? Well, think about the coefficient. If there's no number in front of it, what's the coefficient? It's 1. So we're going to throw an imaginary 1 in here just to help us out a little bit. So we have 2. So break down 2, 1 and 2. 1 times 2 is 2. And so that's the only two factors here, since 2 technically is a prime number. Now, combining here, you have a positive in the middle and a negative at the end. So we've done the negative negative. We've done the negative and positive. Now we're having to break down and do a positive and a negative. So that tells us right here, if this back number is negative, then we're going to have a negative and a positive, like it was up here. Okay, the difference is right here, the bigger, quote unquote, right, bigger number was the negative. That's why this came negative. But since this is positive, the quote unquote bigger number then would be the bigger number would be positive. So the 1 would go there, obviously. So the 2 would go to the positive, the 1 would go to the negative, because negative 1 times q gives us negative 1q, or just negative q. And then q times 2 would give us 2q. And then negative 1 and positive 2 gives us positive 1. So a negative 1 and a positive 2 gives us a positive 1. And then for our last one, number 6, just breaking down one of the questions that was in the 90% of your IXL. You have S and S, breaking down S and S, and then looking here you have 14. So we're going to break down the factors of 14. So 1 and 14 obviously, and then 2 times 7, and that's all we have for 14. So we're going to be looking at these 4 numbers to make up a positive 5. So back number is negative, which means there must be at least 1 positive and 1 negative. Doesn't matter which order it goes in. I hadn't said that in any of the videos, but it does not matter which order it goes in as long as you stick the correct number with the negative and the correct number with the positive. The negative could be in the front, positive could be in the back. Doesn't really matter. So going here, what would combine to be positive 5? So you have a positive 1 and a 14. 1 plus 14, that can't work. or sorry, negative 1. Negative 1 plus 14, that can't work. That equals 13. 1 and negative 14 equals negative 13, so that wouldn't work either. So we got to come up with a positive 5. Knowing that this is positive, it should be making more sense now that since it's positive, the bigger number must be the positive. So the only numbers we have left is 2 and 7. So obviously the bigger number is the 7. So 7 and negative 2 makes 5, so therefore this is the 2 that we need. So remember, it doesn't matter which order it goes in, but the positive number must go with the 7, so the 7 must go up here with the plus, and then the negative 2 is here, so it must go with the negative.